Leadership is a hot topic for all of us right now, but how do we translate those ideas into action? This is the NJCPA Issues Watch podcast. Welcome back to the NJCPA Issues Watch podcast. I'm your host, Stein Smith, and I normally cover everything tech related, from AI, RPA, blockchain, and also crypto assets. But I'm also focused on how these tools and how the changes caused by these tools, applications, platforms are altering how all of us have to interact inside our firms and outside of firms, either to our external clients or the broader business community at large. And as always, I'm happy to be your host for this episode. And I'm even happier today to be joined by a longtime friend of mine, David Almonte, who I've known David going all the way back, 2015, 2016, all the way on the
Yeah,
AICPA FinLip Commission, right?
correct. You got it.
Yeah, and so I encourage anybody who's in the business world, right, CPA and otherwise, to go online, follow David, follow his efforts, and sort of his content online because it's really interesting and really insightful. And it's also easy in the modern era to just produce content for content's sake. But David always puts up really good stuff. David, I'm happy to have you here. And now I'll ask you for a brief introduction of yourself.
Of course. Well, Sean, thank you so much for having me, but also for all the leadership you've shown. I know we've known each other for a number of years, and it's been really awesome following everything you got going on, your leadership journey. So thank you for all you do. My name
Absolutely.
is David Almonte. I'm a CPA, CGMA, and an Eagle Scout. And so for my day-to-day, I'm a financial planning and analysis senior manager for a large insurance company here in Rhode Island, really focusing now myself on large-scale strategic projects after being involved with the monthly close for the last 4 years. So prior to that, I spent 10 years in public accounting, mostly on the audit side. Educational background, I got my associate's degree in accounting from CCRI, Community College of Rhode Island, undergrad in accounting from Bryant University, and I just recently graduated from University of Colorado Boulder with my master's in organizational leadership this past December. So part of leadership is continuing learning and never stop doing that. So I think we're going to talk about it later, but I'm also the co-founder of a rapidly growing nonprofit called Fountainhead Rhode Island. It's grown into a community of over 1,300 business and community leaders all over the country. So really excited about how far that has come. I'm in the process of writing my first book. I am married and I have two incredible kids. And the reason I share that, Sean, is just to have the listeners understand that CPAs wear many hats, right? And there's tons of opportunities for us to showcase leadership, whether it's at work, it's at home.
Yeah, no, and absolutely excellent stuff there, David. And obviously, you're a prime example of how somebody who has a background as a CPA and works in a sort of typical job can also do all kinds of other interesting and engaging things, right? That allow you to give back and also to learn and develop as a person outside of the office also.
Yeah, you got it. And I think sometimes it's on us to take a leadership position too. I mean, think about all the boards that you get asked to serve on or the committees. And the first thing they say is, oh, you're a CPA. Will you be in this finance role? And so what I've come to do is, I ask for opportunities outside of the finance role, right? I want to be involved in the big picture. I don't want to be pigeonholed into something. So obviously I'm very proud of my CPA background, and I use that as a foundation for everything I do. But I'm also involved in a lot of other things, like I just mentioned, that are so far outside of the CPA landscape and what people think of, which I think is really cool.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to actually now hop directly into our conversation here today, which is on the concept of leadership. And obviously, as anybody tuning in to our episode here knows, leadership is a very complicated, multifaceted idea. And it's an idea that has had endless books written about it, magazines, podcasts, conferences, everybody from Joe Rogan, to the folks up at Harvard have thoughts as to what it is, how to do it, and how it can evolve over time. And so So given your breadth of experience, both as a member of groups learning how to lead, and then more and more doing it yourself, what does that word mean right now in the modern business world?
Yeah, I think you hit on it, right? It means different things to different people, different things in different scenarios. It's funny, as I was getting ready for this, I was asking my 7-year-old on the way to soccer practice. I said, "What does leadership mean to you?" She said, "It means being a great teammate. It means picking up people when they get hurt. It means supporting people," which I thought was actually pretty profound for a 7-year-old. So I must be doing something right. But but I think it's two-pronged. I think one, it's all about empowering other people, just as a result of you being around. And then I think it's taking the step further and ensuring that impact continues in your absence. And so I think that's really important. So empowering other people because of your presence and then making sure that that lasts long after you're gone. And I can give you some examples of what
Sure.
leadership looks like from my lens. So leadership's about doing what's right, even if it's not the easiest thing. And it's about doing what's right, especially when no one's watching. So one of the things I've learned is that when you're a leader, eyes are always on you. Leadership isn't something that you do. I really believe that it's something that, it's something you are. It's a part of you. It isn't just something you turn on and off throughout the day, based on whatever situation you have. Leadership is truly a mindset and it's a way of being. It's also about bringing others along as you progress up the ranks. And Sean, you've probably seen some of the things that I've shared on social media, but NABA, the National Association of Black Accountants, they have a motto. It's called Lift as You Climb. It's one of my core tenets to my value proposition for me as a person. So, I've always said, what's the point of climbing the world's tallest mountain if when you get to the top and you look around, you're all alone? And so it's really important from a leadership perspective to understand that leadership isn't about you. It's about other people. It's about empowering them to be successful in whatever they may do. And so just a couple other examples. So leadership's about what you say. It's also about what you do, but it's really important to understand it's also about what you don't say and what you don't do. And so leadership, again, situational leadership, sometimes it requires you to be out in front, speaking your mind and talking about things, to having difficult conversations. Other times, it may be sitting quietly in the back and letting other people speak up and have a voice. And so some people may say, I always like to speak first, and that's the sign of a leader. But one of the other things that's important about sitting back and listening is it helps educate you. And so instead of speaking out in front and thinking that, hey, you may have all the answers, think about how important it is to give everyone a voice around you. But then, from a selfish standpoint, you then get to sit back and listen to everyone else's incredible ideas, take them in, digest them, and then give your full breath, intelligent answer based on everything that everyone said. So I think you summed it up perfectly in the beginning. It means so many different things to so many different people. The way I'd summarize it is basically it's not about you. Leadership is about other people and helping them, empowering them to be successful.
Well said, David. And now putting on our CPA hats for a moment. And, as you outlined earlier, it can be awfully easy for folks who are CPAs who are trying to volunteer and to, get out there and to be more engaged, to end up pigeonholed as the treasurer or as the, money person on the board or at the pet hospital or any other activities that they're involved in. And so how do we and how have you managed to break out of that, pigeonholed possibility, fully acknowledging the fact, right, that as CPAs, that goes into why boards and other external groups come to us in the first place?
Yeah, and I think it's a challenge. But again, I think if we're on the topic of leadership, it's about talking about all the other skill sets you have. And so John Garrett hosts a podcast called What's Your And? And I
Yep.
think it's an incredibly powerful idea and concept because, I'm more than a CPA. I'm more than a father. I'm more than a graduate from a university. There's a whole host of things that make me who I am. And sometimes it's hard because when you go into the business world, no one really wants to hear about any of the other stuff. They just want you to do your job. And, a lot of organizations, the great organizations are the ones that flip that upside down and say, you know what? I hired you because of all of you. And that's the whole point behind, I tell all my team members, I want you to bring your whole self to work. And that may be, yes, a CPA designation, but also maybe a passion of fishing or the stock market or something else. And if you hold people back and don't allow them to bring all of that and to showcase and talk about all those things, I always say it's like going to work with one hand tied behind your back. You can't allow people to be happy and to be their true authentic selves unless you allow them to bring all of themselves to work. And part of that is, serving on boards and doing things outside of a CPA role. But some of that is you have to communicate and you have to tell people, this is what I want to do. And that's hard, right? Especially if it's something that is way outside of what people know you for. And, you do a great job of branding and how important branding is on social media and in life. And part of that is just changing how people see you. I think that's really important.
On that front, right, of broadening, being more than just a CPA, can you tell us what your first book is on?
Yeah.
Just in very broad strokes, just in very brief terms.
You got it. It's going to be called Break the Mold. And so it is the most non-CPA. You could probably know most people, once they learn about me and who I am, they're like, that makes total sense. But a CPA coming out with a new book. So it's called Break the Mold. And it's basically a lone soldier going through life looking for happiness. And so it's a parable about leadership, life, happiness. He finds trouble everywhere he goes. He's always looking to the external world to make himself happy. And at the end of the day, he realizes that everything he needed was inside. And so it's basically a book to myself that I wish I had a long time ago with all the leadership lessons that I've learned. I've read so many books now. I've listened to so many podcasts, just digesting content and really taking the key lessons that I learned and whittling them down to the 10 keys to life. And so that's kind of what the book's about.
That honestly sounds like an awesome idea, David, and I cannot wait for it.
Yeah, I figure the more people I tell, the more people will hold me accountable. So
yeah, absolutely. Yep. And so coming back to more of the operational sort of nuts and bolts of how to lead, how to engage, how to brand, how to market products, services, and you as a brand, how do all of these tools and all of these applications that all of us hear about on a daily basis, be it social media, be it AI, be it tokenized payments, how does that sort of background noise change how all of us as CPAs and as more than CPAs, how does that backdrop change how we should interact with and try to build our own leadership brand?
Yeah, I think that's something that every organization and leader is struggling.
Tough question. I'm sorry.
No, I think the short answer is, technology doesn't change the fundamentals of what leadership is, right? But it certainly changes the way in which it's delivered. It certainly changes the way in which it's observed. And so you can go back to the pandemic. The pandemic gave us a ton of examples of leadership going wrong. Think about all the mass firings that happened over Zoom. I mean, I don't think that would be a great leadership decision, but people didn't know. They were trying to utilize technologies in new ways, and they didn't really think about the implications from the get-go. And so I think we learned a lot, certainly through the pandemic, taught us a lot about happiness and leadership and a whole bunch of other things, but it also taught us about meeting our people where they are and how incredibly important that is. So, you mentioned that the advancement of technology, it's growing at an exponential clip. Current moment, right? Through advancements, you mentioned some of them, machine learning, robotics, AI, blockchain, all of that is incredibly important. It's not going to stop anytime soon either. The key, is just understand what these new technologies provide us as leaders. It's another tool. People have heard me speak before. It's another tool in the toolbox. And another tool is just that. It's another tool. It's up to us to figure out which tool we grab in which situation. And so I think it's really important to understand what these new technologies provide to us in terms of leadership, but also in terms of efficiencies and the way in which we work. And I think it's just important to be mindful and proactive. In each situation that we rely on, we have all these tools and it's up to us. And that's where the experience comes in, is to figure out which tool is the one that we want to pull on. And I'm sure you see the same thing at work. We're always talking about upskilling and how incredibly important upskilling is. And I think there's lots of arguments out there over whose job it is to upskill the workforce, the employer or the employee. And I think we all know the great organizations are the ones who prepare their workforce for the future. And I always laugh because it makes me think about the quote of, the CFO talking to the CEO, and it says, CFO says, "What if we train them and they leave?" And the CEO says, "What if we don't and they stay?"
Mhm.
And so I think that's incredibly important to remind ourselves about that story or meme or GIF, whatever you want to call it. It's our job as leaders is it's not to worry about, our people leaving with their newfound skills. In fact, I would argue that is an incredibly powerful thing. You want your people to be in high demand, right?
Yep.
Our job is to prepare our workforce for the future. And then this is the most important part, treat them so well that they don't want to leave. And I think that's where technology can play a key role. But really, it's about meeting your people where they are. It allows us to have deeper connections and conversations. The trouble I find now is with the new remote and hybrid workforces, it just it complicates a lot of things. And so it makes you go out of your way to work really, really hard in order to meet your people where they are and to make sure that you make them feel valued, even though they're not in the workforce or not in the workplace. And I think that's important.
Yeah. And any of that answer from David, that could be the promo clip for our episode right there. David, that was very well said, and I
Thank you.
am not surprised at all of that comprehensive, well reasoned answer. And so now I promised that I would ask you more on this topic because I think one of the times that the two of us were having some food after a AICPA thing, going back to I think 2016 or so, you were talking about this idea of having, I believe at the time you were calling it and correct me if I'm wrong, a Jeffersonian dinner,
We
where
were,
you
yeah.
basically just bring people together and all that. And then I've been sort of watching this whole Fountainhead RI concept grow and honestly, become a really great innovative force. And so please do, tell me and us as to how it started and the goals of it and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. Yeah, it's my baby, is how I like to describe it. It's one of those things, I still remember it. I was laying in bed having trouble sleeping, and my wife's like, "What's wrong?" And I was just thinking, this got to be more. I'm not happy. Like the whole 9 to 5 thing, and we were just got into this conversation, and she was like, "What do you want to do?" And I just said, I get it that the people want to work 9 to 5, and that's totally cool, right? Like everyone, there's a place for everyone in the world. But I think of 9 to 5 job for me is just like the bare minimum. That's what I do. And then all the other things I fill in around it. So like all the boards, the committees, the sports, the kids, all of that is what brings me a lot of joy. And so I wanted to surround myself with people that thought the same, that thought that, they want to do incredible things. They want to hang around with people that are 10 times smarter than them, that are doing really cool things. They want to learn and grow. And what I found was that in the networking space, you typically network with people that do exactly what you do. And that's the last thing I want to do. I talk about finances all day at work. That's the last thing I want to do after work. And so I wanted to hang out with people that, again, that are 10 times smarter, doing really cool things. And it turned out a lot of other people wanted to do that too. So we started with the Jeffersonian dinners. We brought people together to a restaurant, and it was about just hanging out, talking about business, art, culture, whatever it was, super informal. And maybe we had 6 people at the first one, next one we had 12, next one you had like 30 or 40, and then restaurants started to be like, you got to stop. Like that's a lot of people. You got to call in advance. We would just show up. And we found out that we were onto something. So now it's grown into an organization. We started it in 2017, late 2017, early 2018. And it's grown into an organization with over 1,300 business community leaders all over the country. We host educational panel events. We do live community spotlights, fireside chats, and then we do experiential stuff like virtual whiskey tastings. We had one the other day. And it's really about just getting like-minded, diverse business community leaders together in a room to work on complicated tasks, to solve real problems, but to get to know each other and form deep, meaningful relationships. So I'm really excited to watch it grow. And I don't know what the future is going to hold, but you just take it one day at a time and you don't step in front of the train.
I'm excited too, David. Um,
Thanks.
and and as we wrap up our conversation, because I could have you on here for 8 hours talking about this stuff, but
I would love that.
as well, then I'll have to have you back on. But as we wrap up our first conversation here today. If you had advice to anybody in the field, but really oriented towards people who might be in a place that's similar to you or sort of where you were, right? They have their job, they have their CPA, but they're trying to figure out how to do more. If there was one action step or one concept that you would tell them to either embrace or to do, what is that one first step?
I'll give you a mindset. And
There we go.
so we're on video, right? So I can show you this.
Yep.
212 degrees. Notice all the sticky
Mhm.
notes. So 212 Degrees is a book by Sam Parker. And it's a book my dad gave me. And it's a mindset that I've adopted. And so the concept goes something like this. At 211 degrees, you have hot water. At 212 degrees, you have boiling water. Boiling water creates steam, and steam can power a locomotive. And the concept is it's only one extra degree. Why is that really important? What does it matter if I just give a little bit more every day at work or at home? And the book is all about, you got to read it. It's super short. I think it's like 100 pages. But
I'm
it
going to read
goes
it
through
right
and
now. Yeah.
yeah, it goes through and it talks about golf specifically in a lot of examples and the difference between the person who finished first and the person who finished second, and how one putt can be the difference between hundreds of thousands of dollars. And how just if you had the concept of 212 degrees and they use the concept of and some. So you do your very best and some. And how if we approach that, leading our organizations, leading your teams, leading your households, and you become, I said leadership is a way of life. This is a mindset change. It's a way of life. It's something that you can implement in everything that you do. And I think that's something that you could take day one and you could make, drastic changes in your organization, your life, your happiness, your journey. And I think it's important, just one last point is there's a myth about leadership that you need to wait until you're in a power position or a C-suite or you have a certain title in order to lead. And that couldn't be furthest from the truth, right? I just told you the story in the beginning about my 7-year-old being a leader on a soccer team. You can lead everywhere you go. Getting my Eagle Scout every day was a leadership process. And you got to understand that when you're doing things that are different, it's not always going to be easy. You're going to fall, you're going to fail a lot. But the point is to get back up and to learn, right? Don't make the same mistakes twice. Surround yourself with incredibly diverse, like-minded people who challenge you to be a better version of yourself, and then just wake up every day, one foot in front of the other, and just try to be a little bit better than the person you were the day before.
Excellent stuff there, David. And I will absolutely have to have you back on because all of the ideas that we just barely touched on here today are so critically important for us as CPAs, for our firms, for us as people, and for the business community and our communities at large. So, David, I will definitely have you on. It has been a blast having you here today.
Same here, Sean. Really appreciate the opportunity.
And so, a few quick housekeeping items just for anybody who's tuning in today to our conversation. If you aren't yet a member of the NJCPA Emerging Tech Interest Group, I encourage you to sign up at njcpa.org/groups. And all of our podcast episodes, including this one, are going to be at njcpa.org/podcast, as well as on every other podcast platform out there, Apple, Google, Spotify, all of that good stuff. And for anybody who's interested in our blockchain, crypto content, articles, podcasts, interviews, all of that is available at njcpa.org/hub/crypto. Thanks. Have an awesome day.